Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're diving into a massive shift in how we actually build and use artificial intelligence. We are moving way beyond this idea of a single, all-knowing AI model that just magically does everything, and we're stepping into the world of AI agents. And honestly, here's the coolest part. As we'll see today, building a team of AI agents is, well, it's surprisingly exactly like building a human startup. We're going to run with this human startup metaphor to break down exactly how you can build, hire, and manage your very own AI agent team. Let's get into it.
Okay, so I want to start off with a question that really sets the stage for us. Can one single AI build a mobile app? Think about it for a second. If you've ever sat down with a standard off-the-shelf AI and just asked it to build a complete, perfectly functioning mobile app from scratch, what happens? Yeah, it fails, pretty much every time. And why is that? Because complex, multi-step tasks just completely break a standalone large language model. It relies only on its pre-trained knowledge, and it literally just gets overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of the job.
So this right here is exactly where that solo approach hits a wall. Look at the left side. The standalone LLM is incredibly smart, sure, but it is entirely bottlenecked by its pre-trained knowledge. In the world of artificial intelligence, honestly just like with human intelligence, more complex tasks demand a team of collaborators. Now look over at the right. We have the AI agent team. Here, each contributor has a highly specialized role. They bring unique skills and brainpower that all fuse together into one cohesive output. To get big things done, you need doers, you need thinkers, supervisors, and communicators all working together.
Here is our onboarding manual for today's explainer. We'll be covering Beyond the Solo LLM, Meet Your AI Team, Real-World Teamwork Patterns, Managing Your AI Employees, and finally, Scaling Your AI Startup.
All right, jumping right into Section 1, Beyond the Solo LLM, Why Teams Win.
Going back to that mobile app example, look at all the steps involved here. The agent has to take an initial prompt, then figure out user requirements, plan the entire app architecture, write the actual code, run tests on that code, and then finally publish the whole thing. Seeing it laid out like this visually proves exactly why this workflow is just way too much for one generic model to handle alone. I mean, think about it. No single human developer could perfectly execute all of these totally distinct disciplines at the exact same time. So we definitely shouldn't expect a single AI to pull it off either.
Which brings us to Section 2, Meet Your AI Team, Hiring the Roster.
It turns out, human startup jobs map absolutely perfectly to AI agent roles. Let's look at the first few. First up is the doer. This is basically your junior worker. They handle the individual concrete steps, like writing copy or generating code. Now, on their own, they can't build the whole app, but they execute perfectly if someone else is providing the big picture. And that someone else is our strategist, or the planner. They take a huge, complex problem and break it down into much smaller, fully documented plans, kind of like sketching out the entire app architecture before a single line of code is even written. Then we've got our API specialist, which we call the tool operator. This team member creates highly structured inputs to actually interact with things like external APIs, web services, or discrete Python scripts. And finally, for this group, we have our researcher, or the learner. Just like a human who's out there reading market trends, this agent retrieves fresh information from the outside world. If you're familiar with a basic RAG flow, Retrieval-Augmented Generation, this is it. They're out there pulling info on competitor apps or reading blogs to figure out what features users actually want today.
Rounding out our roster, we have the critic. You know that brutally honest peer in the office? Yeah, that's this agent. They review responses specifically to catch hallucinations, or they'll write and execute QA tests for the code that was just generated. They might even score a bunch of different inputs and just ruthlessly pick the absolute best one. Next is the manager, or the supervisor. This role can sit at the individual task level or watch over the whole project. They're constantly checking progress, making sure the other agents aren't getting totally stuck, and stepping in when a step fails. And lastly, just like at the very end of any big human group project, somebody has to actually present the work. So we have the spokesperson, or the presenter. They bring all these disparate pieces together to communicate the final product back to you, the user. They'll summarize the user requirements, explain the code base, and essentially hand over the final app that the team just built.
Moving right along to Section 3, Real-World Teamwork Patterns, the workflow.
So if you've been following the space, you might have heard an industry term getting thrown around a lot lately, the REACT pattern. It stands for reasoning and acting. It's this massively popular framework that integrates well reasoning and acting, and it beautifully illustrates our newly hired AI team in actual motion. Just watch how the baton gets passed here.
It's like a relay race. The tool operator initiates an action, boom. That output is then handed straight over to the planner for reasoning. Then, the critic steps in to observe what just happened and give feedback. And this loops until finally the presenter steps up to deliver a cohesive answer. It is this incredibly seamless, high-quality loop where highly specialized agents are just volleying tasks back and forth exactly like a real-world startup team trying to meet a deadline.
Okay, Section 4. Managing your AI employees, training for success. Because look, hiring the team is only half the battle, right? Now you have to manage them. Just like developing a human workforce, there are 4 primary methods to manage and train your agents: prompting, model selection, model tuning, and context. Let's quickly walk through each of these management techniques.
The first one is prompting. This is simply giving clear, very direct instructions through the prompt to your agent collaborators. Honestly, it is exactly the same as telling a junior employee what to do if they hit a wall. Giving a simple instruction like, hey, if you get stuck, retry and try again, is absolutely vital. You can't assume they know what to do. You have to actively instruct them on how to behave.
Second is model selection. Think of this as your hiring process. You really need to internalize this. Not every AI model should be doing every job. You have to match the model's specialization, its size, its reasoning capabilities, and even its specific persona to the exact role you need filled. You wouldn't hire a creative writer to do your back-end database architecture, right? The exact same logic applies here.
Third up is model tuning. Now, fair warning, this is a much heavier lift. Tuning actually requires vast ground truth data sets to permanently change the model's underlying behavior towards what you define as success. It's highly resource intensive. Why? Because it requires human resources to sit there and curate all those good and bad examples, plus the heavy computational resources needed to actually retrain the model's weights. And finally, we have context. Think about onboarding a brand new human employee. You give them access to the necessary systems, sure, but you definitely don't dump the entire company's historical archive onto their desk on day one and say good luck. With AI agents, it's the exact same thing. You must choose their context wisely. Give them the data they need to succeed, but absolutely avoid overwhelming them with irrelevant noise. And that brings us to Section 5, Scaling Your AI Startup, the Future. When a human startup first launches, it usually begins with a really small, scrappy team just pulling together to get a working solution out the door as fast as possible. And your AI agent team? It can start the exact same way, just a few key roles. But as you scale up, your team naturally has to grow. You'll start adding much more specialized roles, and you'll create these robust internal feedback loops to constantly fix bugs and polish the final product. So, what does this all mean for you? It means building an agent is no longer just about chatting back and forth with a single AI. It's about architecting a highly collaborative team of experts. So I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to chew on. Your AI startup starts today, right now. Which roles are you hiring first? I want you to think about the complex workflows in your own daily life and start mentally mapping out the doers, the planners, and the critics you'd need to actually get the job done. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy building!